Hello guys. On my videos I got a lot of comments about how foreigner can own a lot in the Philippines. It's not impossible or only through marrying a Filipina. Yeah. But today I have unique opportunity to talk with a lawyer who focused on the corporate deals. James, can you explain how foreigner can establish a corporation in the Philippines?
Yes. Hi, Alex. Setting up a corporation in the Philippines requires, especially when the corporation is intended for ownership of property,
Yeah.
has a maximum of 40% foreign equity. So it has a limit. The other 60% has to be owned by Filipinos.
Mhm.
As in most cases, when a foreign individual or investor wants to own property here, they would find a way to get effective control over the property because the ownership of property is mainly consists of the title
Yeah.
and possession. Possession of the property is, for example, you buy property or you have a property which is owned by another person. It can be owned on title by another person, but can be possessed by the foreigner.
Mhm.
This can be through a lease contract
Yeah.
or a contract of usufruct.
Yeah.
A usufruct, if you're not familiar with it, it is a contract for the use and fruits of the property.
Mm.
So you, as a usufructuary, you have the right to use the property and to its fruits for a specific period of time.
Mm.
So this is some ways to get control and possession over the property for a fixed period. As an investor, you would think, okay, I have possession over the property, but what if I decide to sell?
Yeah.
This can also be done through a contract. In some cases, since it's the foreign individual who's providing funds or capital to acquire or develop the property, we enter into joint venture agreements
Mm.
with the company that has
Yeah.
been established. And in the joint venture agreement, one of the provision is that the joint venture party, the foreigner who entered into a joint venture agreement, will have authority to dispose of the property. And of course, depending on the equity of the local shareholders, they would divide
Mhm.
the proceeds
Yeah.
depending on their arrangement. So that gives effective control over the property.
So, but what to do if foreigner doesn't have any friends or relatives or anyone who he can trust here in the Philippines, but he want to establish a corporation and buy a property?
Some foreigners engage the services of law firms, accounting firms, some professionals that they can trust to be able to help them and find partners
Mhm.
that they can enter into the corporation with. So this is what is usually being done.
What's the guarantee of for owner to have control without issues with co-owners?
Well, as I said, if you have, for example, this joint venture agreement, and mind you, this is not the only way. There's a lot of ways to go about it. But if you have a joint venture agreement with an irrevocable authority to sell, that would be a pretty safe way to possess and to be able to dispose of your property. And
Okay.
it insulates you from any potential conflict with your local partners or local shareholders.
Mhm. I heard one of the way. I wanted to ask: is it legal? Is it really doable here in the Philippines when foreigner find some Filipinos,
Mm-hmm.
make a corporation together,
Mm-hmm.
establish a corporation, and then they make agreement about these individuals took a loan from this foreigner, but
Mm-hmm.
on a paper, and then it's kind of control of individuals that they will not try to take property or whatsoever.
Well, it is also being done. These are all legal transactions. If the local partner
Yeah.
of the foreigner obtains a loan from the foreigner to acquire property, and it is not prohibited by law.
Mm.
So, of course, the local partner can enter into contract with the foreigner. And if that partner uses the money to buy property here and leases it back to the foreigner, that is also not illegal. If you have valid contracts that effectively gives you possession over the property, that is not prohibited.
So then, with this property, foreigner can do everything: make a business, give it for lease, or use it in personal needs or whatever.
Yes, yes. If it's provided for in the contract, that's why it's very important that this contract is prepared by a professional,
Yeah,
so
of
that the foreigner would be protected,
Yeah.
and his rights to the property would be clearly established.
Can you say from your experience, is it popular way to buy a property for foreigners here in Philippines?
In my experience, a lot of our clients prefer the establishing a corporation to hold the company. At least that way they have 40% equity already in the company. And aside from that, they would enter into a contract or contracts with the corporation or with the shareholders.
Yeah.
Because you can also have like an option agreement for the purchase of the shares, which effectively also gives the foreign shareholder protection for the money that he's put into the company.
Do I understand correctly that owner can own shares and company will own property?
Yes.
And owner can sell some of his shares, not property. Is it possible or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he can sell it to another foreigner or to family member or to
Yes.
local Filipino.
Anybody, provided that you do not exceed the 40%
Yeah.
foreign equity restriction.
So is it possible that some Filipinos, local people, will sell their shares to another foreigner? So like two foreigners will own
Yes,
property.
yes. Provided, as again, provided that
No, not
that
more than 40%.
the total
Total.
equity, foreign equity in
Okay,
the company
I got it.
does not exceed 40%.
Yeah, can owner make insurance for his property owned by corporation? Is it
Yes.
possible? Yeah?
Yes.
From damage, from disaster, typhoon, or whatever.
Yes.
So owner basically will have the same rights as individual owner, or it will be some differences.
It's the same.
The same. Yeah?
The same.
So all issues with neighbors will be solved the same way.
It depends on how they structure the ownership and possession of the property or the corporation. If the corporation relinquishes possession over the property to the foreigner by way of lease or usufruct or by way of some other contract, then the foreigner who has possession over the property will have all rights to the property except the right to dispose, because it is the corporation that has the right to dispose of the property.
James, can you tell how much it will cost to establish a corporation for foreigner?
It depends on what type of corporation and which area. For us here, the minimum is 50,000 pesos. Plus, of course, the fees due to the government, registration fees, which would depend on the amount of capital that we declare.
Oh.
So,
Can you tell numbers for how much owner should pay fees from buying and from selling property?
well, to acquire property, associated costs aside from the cost of purchase would be the transfer fees. Of course, the capital gains tax, which is 6%, the documentary stamps tax, which is 1.5%, the registration fees, and the transfer tax, which would be around approximately 1% each. Depends on each locality.
Okay, so it's about 8.5% plus fees
the notarial fees and the service charge to transfer the property. If you buy a property from a developer or from a real estate company, you'd have to pay withholding tax. This would be part of the income tax of the company, of the seller, of course, but you have to withhold 6%. The same amount, but it's not the same kind of tax. And the same documentary stamps tax, transfer tax, and registration fees. And depends if the property is worth more than, if you reach the threshold for VAT, And if you acquire it from a real estate company, you'd have to pay VAT also,
Is it
which
a
is
lot?
12%
12
of the value.
additional.
Yeah. But if you sell this property later on, you can also apply that VAT that you paid
to take back.
yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
you can deduct that from the VAT that is going to be due later.
Okay.
That's going to be an input tax.
But will you need to pay yearly some taxes for corporation?
There is what we call an income tax for the corporation. But you have to pay that when you have an income.
No, but you will not have. It's like only property.
If you are not operating, then there will be no tax.
But is it okay that the owner will establish a corporation with local Filipinos, but will not have any business, only property, like for his personal use?
Yeah, which happens in most cases for foreigners acquiring property here. It's just established as a holding company for the real property.
So it's legal, yeah?
It's legal.
Does foreigner need to hire some local Filipinos in his corporation, or it's not necessary?
If you are actively operating the company, then I guess you have to hire somebody, but it's not required.
James, can you answer a question about what will be if a foreigner, something will happen with him? He will accidentally die or whatever. Who will inherit it property?
It depends on his nationality because as far as Philippines is concerned, we observe the law of the nation of the decedent foreigner. For example, if the foreigner is from the U.S., and we follow what the law in the U.S. dictates as to who his heirs are.
But is it possible to make some kind of contract in case of...
Well, you call that the last will and testament. That is also possible.
It's possible. Is process of selling property have some differences from selling by individual through corporation, or it's the same, basically?
The difference is that the corporation is a fictional being. You cannot see a corporation. It acts through its officers. And since the corporation is owned by its shareholders, when the corporation disposes of a property, it has to be with the authority of the board of directors or the shareholders. So it has to be a board resolution authorizing the sale and appointment of the authorized signatory for the transaction.
Did you have in your practice any issues when foreigner decided to sell property and his co-owners of corporation, I don't know, decided to deny it?
That is a possibility if you are not protected, you are not prepared for that eventuality. So that is why before you start, you have to be well prepared, and your legal professional has to prepare the necessary documents so that this will not happen.
Can you name main steps of this preparation? What could be?
Well, there are different contracts to protect the interests of the foreign shareholder. Some enter into option contracts. So they have an irrevocable option to purchase shares. Some enter into joint venture agreements with irrevocable authority to sell. Some enter into pledge agreements. There is also a mortgage agreement. So that whatever money that has been lent by the foreign shareholder, if ever he did lend money either to the local shareholders or to the company, his interest is protected.
What will be main steps for foreigner if he will decide to buy some property through corporation, if he will ask for your assistance?
First of all, before buying a property, you have to do a due diligence. You have to check if there are no potential claims to this property, if all the documents are in order, if you have right of way, for example. Even not because it's not all the time, but even if you have property and it has an existing road, that road is already yours. It could happen that in the future, the owner of the property
will
in front of your lot will
Yeah.
close it. So that's one instance. Or if the registered owner is already deceased, if all the heirs are there, or if the estate has been settled properly. So all this have to be checked and investigated by a legal professional.
Yeah, sure.
Not necessarily our firm. Wherever you are, you have
Yeah.
to go through this step and approach a lawyer or
But your firm can help from any island of the Philippines or specifically only here in Cebu.
we are based in Cebu, but
Yeah.
we have correspondent firms in other areas of the country, like Manila, Dumaguete,
Oh,
Leyte, Bohol, even Mindanao. But our firm is based in
yeah.
Cebu.
And how long it will take from finding a property to finish whole paperwork for them?
Depends on each locality and
Yeah, if
the
everything fine. Yeah.
situation. If everything is in order, the usual processing time is 3 to 6 months
Mhm.
to
Yeah, it's
transfer
kind of
the
fast.
title.
Yeah.
So,
But main issues can be with mother titles here probably and
yes, yes, there are a lot of issues that can crop up with each transaction. So that's why we have to check properly and have it checked by a professional.
okay. I have some friends, foreigners, who bought land and built a house here in the Philippines, and they register this lot on their friends,
Mm-hmm.
and then make a lease contract for control on this property, yeah, for use this property.
Mm-hmm.
Is it legal or it is crime? Because I heard some comments that it can be not legal.
Well, and leasing property is not illegal. It's not prohibited.
But it's not so reliable, yeah, way how to own property, because you need to have really trusted friend compared to corporation.
If you have a registered owner that is an individual, because of course it's a natural person, and anytime that person can die.
Yeah.
If that person dies, then ownership will be transferred to the heirs.
Yeah.
So
To his relatives.
that will of course the lease contract would still be valid and subsisting. It should be respected by the heirs even if registered owner is already dead. So it's still valid. It's still doable. But the only difference between having a lessor that is an individual and a corporation is that the corporation, the existence of a corporation is perpetual. Now, it has no lifespan. It can exist in perpetuity unless you shorten the term or dissolve the corporation.
Is it hard to dissolve corporation?
It is not hard, but it is not quick. So you have to submit reportorial requirements to the SEC. You have to make sure that you have been filing all the required reports both to the BIR and to the SEC and show that you have no pending liabilities both to the government and to other persons. If everything is fine in a few months, you will be able to close the company.
Yeah, sure. If there is some problems, it depends.
Yeah.
Can foreigner establish a corporation using tourist visa, or he need to change here his type of visa?
Yes, tourist visa is okay.
It's okay. Is it doable from distance, or foreigner should be here in the Philippines?
Even if you're abroad, you can still establish a corporation, provided that you have to have the articles of incorporation authorized in the Philippine embassy where you are at, so or consulate. So we call that authentication or apostille.
So you can make it, for example, in US, these
Yes.
documents send it here and
Yes.
establish corporation,
Yes.
then you will come here and everything will be done already.
Yes, that is possible.
Do you have any advices for foreigners who going to buy property here in the Philippines?
If you buy property here in the Philippines, you have to be sure, you have to be careful and consult a professional first before making any decisions, so that you don't encounter any problems later.
Yeah.
Because most people go to the lawyer only after they have
Yeah.
acquired the
When already
property, and
a
there is
problem.
already a problem.
Yeah.
So you are, as they say, prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
So
I also heard the phrase that you need to have your mechanic, your doctor, and your lawyer. So you will have
yeah.
happy life. Thank you, James, for this interview. I really enjoyed our
You're welcome.
conversation.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I will put contacts in the description. Maybe some of viewers will have additional questions or will decide
Yes.
to be your clients. So thank you guys for watching, and I want to say thank you, Alex, my friend, who introduced me to James. Maybe he's watching us, so thank you.
Thank
Bye bye.
you. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you very much.